Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon in Pakistan, and I hope good evening over there, Nir. And
Actually, it's noon.
it's morning.
Yeah, it's
It's
twelve
noon.
thirty.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's fine. It means there is a noon, good noon, and good afternoon here in Pakistan. I'm Rizwan Akram here in Rizwan Akram classroom. As usually, in classroom, I'm here for learning as a student, and all the guests come to my classroom are always a teacher because I'm learning from him every time. So, Nir, welcome to classroom. And would you like to share about yourself first? Then we will talk later.
Yeah. So I'm from Israel. Um, I'm a Jew, of course. Well, it doesn't go together, not necessarily. I'm an entrepreneur, inventor. I'm also a teacher, just like yourself. I actually learned education. This is one of my
Oh, wow.
majors. Yeah. An open source evangelist. Overall tech geek. Father, husband,
Okay,
you know, everything together.
that's nice. So, Nir, as you are a tech guy and also a teacher, so would you like to know about exactly from the motherland from you, like Israel, and about religion? Like people in Pakistan, we are curious that a lot of taboos are there that we can't say about Israel. We can't talk about Israel or the Jews. So we had some misconceptions about that. So the basic purpose talking to you, I want to know about yourself because we thought that those people who are living in Israel are all bad people. So I think if we don't talk, then uh, we will think about the same assumption for how many years. But I don't know about your assumptions of Israel about Pakistan. So I think we should talk. So that's why I'm here to talk to you. Would you like to share about Israel? What's actually is the state is?
uh, okay, I'll give you my point of view. So there's a
Sure.
saying that if you ask two Jews the same question, you will get four answers.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a joke, but it's true.
It's a
It's
wisdom.
yeah, it's fairly rare that um, Jews will agree on everything. Very rare. Um,
Okay.
as let's say, I think Jews are fairly strong-minded, sometimes a little stubborn about what they believe in. But at the same time, they're also very open-minded. So they're open to new
Okay.
experiences and they're open to new ideas. Um, I think this is very much like any other nation, depending in any other religion or faith, depending
Exactly.
on on the education that people get. It's more of a nurture thing than a nature thing. So that's number one. I don't think the people here in Israel know much about Pakistan specifically. The only thing they know is what they see in the news. Most of them are not. Most of the people here in Israel, we live our lives and we go at it like anybody else around the world. So Pakistan is a country that is thousands and thousands of miles away. So yes, it's interesting, but we most of the things we know is from news. Um, Same as you, same as anybody else. I think that there is a very strong connection all over the world. People have in their minds between a nation and its faith or religion. And that is a connection that needs to be broken. Namely, because the minute it does that, all the various biases, all the emotional baggage that exists for thousands and thousands of years is automatically carried into that equation. And I see that as something bad because it means there is no progress. Um, I know that for when people in the world talk about Israel and talk about Jews, and then terms like Zionism come up, and terms like Holocaust come up, and terms like, everything becomes incredibly emotional. And it's very easy to go that route. It's very easy to say, oh, do you remember about this, or you remember about that? And people do that. People are emotional. They can't stop being emotional. But at the same time, I believe that people need to change the way they value things. So if you value people by what they do, if you value people for what they stand for and what they accomplish, then you're far more capable of looking at things. I don't want to say objectively, because everybody's biased. That's normal. That's human nature. But you can, let's say, appreciate things better. So think about it this way. Imagine that a whole country will say, we will not use a specific online service because it was created by a Jew, or because it was created by a Muslim, or maybe because the creator is gay. Okay, so where will we go? Facebook, the platform where you broadcast, was designed and created by Mike Zuckerberg, a Jew. And there are multiple open source projects that drive a lot of the internet that were created by Muslims and gay people. And so what? So progress needs to be racist? Progress is not racist. Progress is progress. So if this is what you want the world to be in 5 years, 10 years from now, then this is what you should stand for. And this is what you should, promote. Not bias, not saying, oh, you're this, you're that, I'm not gonna talk to you. And for me, that's the most important part. So when people ask about Israel and ask about Jews, these are two very different questions. Because being Jewish is a faith. You cannot choose to be. You're born into it. Very much like you're born a Muslim or you're born a Catholic. You don't have a choice. But what you do with your life, your nation, your beliefs, this is your choice. And this is the most important part. How do you choose to live your life? That's what I think.
Nir, you have explained very well. I would like to ask you, there is a myth, I don't know either it's a myth or buzzword, that 100 Fortune companies are owned by Jews, are backed by Jews, or managed by Jews. Either it's a true, if it's true, then what is the reason that the people are so influential?
I think that the same statement can be said for Indians, Chinese, Christians, you name it. I don't think it matters. Yes. Look, I'll admit it. Okay, so Israel. Okay, so for many years, the world had changed over the course of the past 2,000 years. We had
Exactly.
um, we had republics, huge countries, empires go up and down. We had the Roman Empire, then we had,
Yep.
the Spaniards, conquered a lot of space. Then the English, the British. Then it goes on and on and on
The
and on.
British kingdoms.
Yeah, the British Kingdom, and each one of them, they put their little mark on the
Okay.
world and on history. Now let's take for some odd reason, and I don't know why. Over the course of history, the geographic area where Israel sits was something that many nations regarded as something important, which
Exactly.
is, you know, it's awesome. It's nice. Everybody, so I'm putting history aside. Okay, history is not the interesting part. Regardless the history of who was here first or not, I'm not looking at that. I'm looking
Okay.
at it from a nation perspective. So in many situations across history, we had the Spanish Inquisition, we had the Roman Empire, we had so Jews were driven out of Israel, then driven back into Israel, then driven out again. Things change, and history is history. You can't deny it. You can only at most interpret it in different ways. You can give it some rationale. You can give some, but we were not there. And to be
Exactly.
completely honest, it doesn't really matter. Um,
Yeah.
but Jews as a nation over the course of history many times were prosecuted, were driven out of their houses, and you can see it across history. And it happened to other nations as well. For the Chinese, the Japanese were
Exactly.
right. So that thing happens. It's part of human nature and history. Can't deny it. But I think that over
Yeah.
the course of time, when it happens to a nation multiple times, the certain thought patterns become more and more ingrained into the overall nation. So across time, Jews became more self-reliant. They became less. I think they became more easily adaptable. So they are more inclined to being thought and inventive. So they're looking at things differently. They're always trying to figure out how to do things better, potentially how to look at things from outside of the box, and thinking, okay, so what's wrong with that? Or maybe we can do it better. If if that made them into better managers, better inventors, scientists, whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay, so history set its course, but it doesn't really mean that if you take Fortune 100 companies, or 500, 1,000 companies, yes, statistically there will be Jews in there. You can't do anything about it. But at the same time, there will be Muslims and there will be Christians and everything. You're gonna get, so if you're going to pinpoint something, saying, "Oh, Jews control the world," yeah, there is no master plan. There is no, it doesn't exist. Never did.
Nir, have you gone through such statements previously that Jews rule the world or Jews make the policies or new world order is being made by Jews? Have you
You
listened
mean
to
you mean if I made such statements or somebody else made such statements? Uh, you broke up, so I couldn't hear the question.
these are myths? I was saying that these some people say these statements. Have you listened? Nir, I hope that you are listening me.
You're
It's okay
breaking up,
now.
so yeah, now it's better. Yeah.
Okay. I was asking that either have you listened to statements that Jews rule the world and Jews have made the world order, world trade order, or Jews have control over system. Have you listened such statements throughout your life or anywhere in life?
You mean if I've heard these from people stating these? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Not directly, but you hear them all over. You hear. Look, people will always look for the easiest thing to attach to their potential pain. So
Hmm.
if you're working for somebody and you're having some issues at work, and let's say your manager is a Jew, then automatically all Jews are bad. But the same will apply if your boss is Muslim or anything else, because this is this human nature. You can't stop it. Um,
That's
it, it, it's human nature to look at the neighbor's yard and the grass is potentially greener, and you can say, "Oh, it's because he's Jewish, or it's because he's Muslim." What? Seriously? Doesn't make any sense. It's
exactly.
it's very easy for anybody to to attach their pain, their potential mishappenings with somebody else's, or with somebody else's good fortune, or with somebody else's results, because he worked harder, or he worked maybe smarter, or maybe he was just was born into a rich family. I don't know, but
Exactly.
if you do that, then you're only going back. You're never going to go forward. um I'm going to show you something. Let me draw a picture. It'll be easier. Let me find a piece of paper here. So here's an interesting question. So what do you see here? See this?
It's a circle.
A circle inside a
Two
circle.
circles.
Two circles,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Now
Yeah.
I'm going to add something in here. Okay.
Okay.
You see what I wrote next to the small circle? What does it say?
Comfort zone.
That's your comfort zone. You know what is the bigger circle? Where
Come out of your comfort zone.
where everything else happens and life is.
Exactly.
Okay, the comfort zone is the most dangerous thing you can have. What is your comfort zone? Your comfort zone is what you studied at school and what you believe is the norm. Your comfort zone is your local rabbi or imam or priest, where you go to and talk to him and tell him, and he gives you his view. That is your comfort zone.
Exactly.
Outside of the comfort zone is where the interesting questions live. It's where everything else happens. Elon Musk, the people at Tesla wouldn't have
Yeah.
built the Tesla cars if they wouldn't been able to go out of their comfort zones and challenge the norm.
Hmm.
Okay, Jeff Bezos wouldn't have built Amazon to what it is if he wasn't able to challenge the norm and say, I'm going to take people outside of the comfort zone of going into a bookshop, and I'm going to make them buy books online. And
Yep.
and once you see that, that becomes the new comfort zone. It always expands, but that is on on a global scale. But on a personal scale, expanding your own comfort zone is incredibly hard because it is scary. It's the scariest thing in the world. This is what entrepreneurs do. This is what inventors do. They always challenge their comfort zone. They always look for the next thing. This is what educators need to do. This is what this is our job as teachers. When we sit with people, with young people, to challenge their minds to think differently. And I know, you said that there are various misconceptions. There is a misconception, okay? There are a lot of misconceptions. Many people call Israel the startup nation. It's true. There are a lot of startup companies. There are a lot of entrepreneurs here. Really, there's a lot. On just where I live on my street, okay, I would say that there are So my entire street is about half a kilometer long, 500 meters. I would say that there are at least 30 different entrepreneurs living on my street.
Wow.
30 different startup companies in different realms: security, like cyber, communications, agri-tech, food tech, whatever you want, everything. I got here. My neighbors here, so one works for Google, the other one works for Amazon, another one for Microsoft, another one for Red Hat. Okay, so this is the reality here. And I think that reality is very much because Israel is very small. So we don't have, we don't have a lot of natural resources. There's no oil here. Half of Israel is more or less a desert. uh, at most, we got some nature, but we don't have, it's not a big place. So the only asset that we have is our brains and our wits. So that's what we do. Uh,
Amazing.
but but it's something that happened. It's not a nature. It's not nature. It's nurture. It's reality conditioned us to be that way.
Amazing. You have explained it very well. Now, I would like to ask about other thing.
Hmm?
We have spoken about hardships and works, and definitely hardship pays you off. I want to know about the basic output, like you produces most scientists, engineers, many tech guys, software houses, companies. How's the education system in Israel, like that support entrepreneurship or building organizations instead of making job-minded people? The
So
crux of
just
the system.
okay, you broke a little bit, so I'll reiterate what I heard. So you're asking, is there some kind of, let's say, governmental support or a countrywide method of supporting entrepreneurs and helping them succeed? Is that what you're asking? Is that?
Yeah,
Oh,
I want to know about them that cultivated. Yep.
the audio is really broken. Um,
Okay.
I'll try and I'll do my best to answer that. So, at least what I heard. Um, it's very, it's fairly easy to start a company or any type of business here in Israel. The overall hurdles are not that difficult. Difficult. Oh, education system. Uh, well, yeah, to some extent, some of the universities do have acceleration programs. So if you're a student and you have an idea, then you can approach the university and they will provide you with some form of backing. Normally, they will take an equity from your venture. Each university is a little different, um, but it does exist in an extent. To an extent, some of these programs are even backed by the various companies. So, for example, the Technion, which is Israel's, I think it's one of the one of the most famous institutions in the world for technologies. It's very up there, like with MIT. Um, so the Technion has two different accelerator programs, I think. One which is backed by Intel, and another one which is backed in medical, but don't recall by who. Um, and yes, they exist. There is some backing, but it's not as grand as you may imagine. Sometimes it's incredibly small. Um, from a governmental perspective, support for entrepreneurs is extremely low. It is okay. Maybe it's incorrect. Not extremely low, but as a business, you're required to abide by various laws, regulations, taxes, etc. Um, Regardless if you're an entrepreneur or a business that makes money, and right now you're not making a dime, you have to abide by these laws. So that's that. Um, there's a saying that goes, "Success has many partners, but failure is only of an individual."
Has done.
So it means that when a company here in Israel, an entrepreneur succeeds, everybody wants a piece of the pie. No question about it. Um, but it is an ecosystem of entrepreneurship. Everybody here, in some form, has an idea. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody believes that they can do something good, or they can build some kind of business, and I think that's awesome. It means that people are actively seeking to improve. Do everybody make it? Not at all. Statistics show that maybe 1% of all the startups that start here in Israel, and there are thousands of them every year that begin, only 1% will actually finish the year. Very few. I don't think that the education system is. There are some programs, for kids to teach them how to be entrepreneurs, but they're not in school. They're external. So just to give you a rough idea, so my older daughter is now doing an online class, which started back in March, for developing mobile applications. She's 11. And
Wow.
you can find these classes all over the country. So I studied programming when I was 10. That was my first ever. I got my first programming job when I was 14. It means that the system as is, the government Ministry of Education, they're not, depending on who's in control, right, left, what's important, what's not important, what we have cash, what we don't have cash, um, it
You mean to
changes.
say there is also a rightist or leftist in there?
Exactly, completely. So every 4 years, it will change. Every 4 years, the subjects will change a little bit, the focus will change. So it's up to us as parents to make sure that our kids are nurtured the right way. Not necessarily to steer them in a specific path, to say, "Oh, you're going to be a programmer. Oh, you're going to..." No. It is to give them at least the basics, or at least the tools to choose their own path. For me, my wife, when I suggested that we enroll my daughter to a programming class, my wife was, "What, you want her to be a programmer?" I said, "No. I want her to know what it is, or at least experiment with it, so when she grows up, she will understand what it felt like and can take a conscious decision as to where she goes, not to be steered into a specific path just because somebody said so." And so I don't know if you can see this behind me. Okay, so just the mess
I can see a
behind
little
me.
bit tools.
Okay, so yeah, so
There
the
are
mess
little
behind
tools and
me.
some wires.
Yeah, so this is my home office. Okay, and this mess behind me more or less represents the various things and paths that I've taken as a young, as a child. So there's a soldering
Oh,
iron
wow.
there. See, like, there we go. Oh, see, like, this is a professional soldering iron.
Yeah, I
Uh,
can see it.
there are
Yeah.
various things in here. I even have somewhere around here. There's also what's called an oscilloscope. Uh, so, but you're now saying, wait a minute, you're a programmer. You write code. Why would you have an you know soldering iron? And the reason is very simple. When I was younger, I studied electrical engineering and I studied
Wow.
electronics. And why? Because I wanted to experiment. I wanted to learn what's interesting for me, what I like to do. And if people don't do that, and society just steers them into one path, then there will be no progress ever. It's all about choices.
Nir, Nir, what do you think the age for children go to school, and how you prefer your children to start their career? Like, I don't know at which you have started your first job at the age of 14. Is it your own choice, or is it a society or conventional way of learning? The people come to the jobs at the age of 14 or 15, because in Pakistan
No,
we started job about 20 to 25 years.
no, it's completely each person takes his own choice. So in Israel, um, okay, so let's start with the basic uh, premise. So Jewish parents are very protective, sometimes a little overprotective. Um, I guess that's nature.
Hmm.
Um, in many cases, parents will prefer their kids to stay at school, learn well, get good grades, go to university. Don't worry, we'll fund you. We'll pay for it. Um, Sometimes it's the child's choice, decision to say, no, I'm going to get a job because it's important for me. Okay. Um, when I was younger, when I was 14, so this is actually a very interesting story. Um, so I always had a passion towards electronics, computers, programming, anything that was, you know, back then very advanced. And my dad, so he's an electrician.
Hmm.
And when I was 14, he told me, look, yes, you're talented. You're able to take almost any electronic broken machine and fix it without even knowing what it
Exactly.
does, and you know how
Uh-huh.
to program. But during the summer holiday, so summer holiday here in Israel is 2 months, you're going to learn to work with your hands,
Hmm.
because I said that I wanted to work and I wanted to save some money and buy something. And he said, okay, you're going to go work, but you're not going to work in this. You're going to work some real hard physical labor. And at the age of 14, um, my dad arranged for me to go out and work at the southern part of Israel where it's incredibly hot. So it's right next to close to the desert, to work in
Uh-huh.
helping building houses. So I was working outside with construction workers. And the philosophy behind that was, my dad said, it doesn't matter what you will become when you grow up. As long as you know how to
Uh-huh.
work with your hands, you
Wow.
will always be productive. And for me, that was a life-changing experience. Now, I think personally, I think that going out and starting your professional life or your work life at the age of 25, and that's my own personal belief. Take it with a grain of salt. I think it's wrong. I
Hmm.
think I think that people should experiment with different things before they reach that age, because that age is already too late. At the age of 25, depending on where you are in the world, potentially you're already married, potentially you already have a kid. Responsibility is taking over. I think that experimenting with different jobs, different perspectives, different industries before you reach that point where you get married and have your first child is incredibly important, because only then you can learn who you are and what you're good at. If you don't, then eventually you become a bitter adult. Your life is going the wrong way, not what you imagined when you were a child. And sometimes it takes you, right place or wrong place. It doesn't matter. Experience is what matters. There is no. So somebody once told me. Hold on a second. Somebody's beeping outside. Okay, good. Never mind. Sorry about that. Somebody once told me, the goal is not important. Where you go to is not important. It's the path that takes you there. Because along the path, you may change your goal. You may change where you want to
Hmm.
go. So make sure that you enjoy the path. But if the path is preset for us, and somebody told us this is the path, then there is no path. There is only a goal.
So, Nir, I hope that last question of today's session, because I have taken much time than I have already mentioned for the schedule. The last question, I want to know about the family system over there. Like here in Pakistan, we live in a most of the time in a combined family system. Like if the parents have two or three sons, even after marriage and after their own grandchildren, people used to live in a single house with a combined family system. I want to
Okay.
know how's the family system over there.
Uh, hmm. Well, okay. Israel doesn't work like that. Um, so there are some, let's say, groups that do live like that, specifically if they're extremely religious. So it is very common
Hmm.
in the highly religious, parts of society to live in close communes, like very close groups of families together. It has its
Hmm.
advantages. It has its disadvantages.
Exactly.
Most secular Jews, like myself, so yes, we live not far away from where our parents live, and we have very strong bonds with them. But we don't live like right next to them. So my parents live like 15 minutes drive away from here, and my wife's parents live 15 minutes drive away from here. So we don't live like in the same house. It's impossible. You can't. At least that's how I see it. Is that you can't live? Not everybody can live in the same house and eventually maintain their own personal identity, or at least develop it. Eventually, you adopt somebody else's. Uh, there's a saying that that if you see a man and his dog on the street, you will see that the dog is very much similar to the man. Or over the course of time, the dog adopts the same characteristics or behavior of his owner, because he lives in the house, and that eventually what happens in that, I think, that type of living, good or bad, you need to take your own decision. It's not for me to say if it's good or bad. uh, but I believe that if a person wants to develop their own person, their own identity, they have to have their own space separate from everything else so they can evolve. They can learn who they are.
Near the last and the least questions. How about the marriage function and marriage institution over there? Like in Pakistan, our culture is like that. It's not about religious; it's about cultural event. That we gather hundreds of people in a marriage event, uh, and there are function of 4 to 5 days continuously. First is the nikah, we said, and then there is a party in for the marriage by the groom. First day is from the bride. First is the mehndi. There are a lot of even 4 to 5 days it takes about, and it's about if the poorest people he try to gather at least 50 to 100 people in every function. So how about the marriage ceremonies over there?
Um, well, it's not that elaborate. It's far simpler. Yes, there is a big party. Depending on who you are, your family, you can get to sometimes events of even 500 or 1,000 people. So it can be, but it's not a 5 day festivity. You know, it's not that long. Normally, there's a saying, in Israel, when men get married. So men are a little stressed. The woman had been planning it for all of her life. The man, not that much. And, you never think about it as a man until you get to the point, and then we have a local saying, no worry, it's 4 hours and you're done. Life begins afterwards. Uh, so yeah, there's a big party and so on. There's a lot of excitement. The families are very much involved, and but it's not a 5 day, event that starts with. It also depends on, so example, um, of weddings in highly religious um, communities will be separated. So men will be, dancing and partying on one side of the hall, and the women will be completely separated. There is no mixing between the two. But that's in highly religious, weddings.
Yeah,
Secular weddings will be like myself. So you have to be married into the Jewish faith, and you need to have a rabbi and everything. But the party and everything is, it's together. So depending on what part of faith you are and what part of community, then it will be a little different. But it's not a huge. It is a big thing, but not, it's a big party. Uh, it's a lot of food, a lot of dancing, and so. But it's not a 5 day event. It's something. It's a ceremony. Yeah, awesome, great, thumbs up. Next, life starts. So
Nir, it was really nice talking to you, and you
likewise,
have answered uh, my some hot questions in a very polite and beautiful way. I love the
welcome.
communication power as a teacher you have, and the beautiful answering with the logical reasoning about the questions. I'm really inspired by the communication power and the words you have spoken so far. It was really nice talking to you, and
Likewise.
I will like to share that the things that was pre-assumptions about the Jews, I have little changing in that. That every community ever have a good persons in it, and as a whole nation, you can't say the bad or the good one for the whole
Exactly.
nation. There are different
Exactly.
people in it, and you can blame the whole society for single person. Thank you
Exactly.
so much for
You're
your time
welcome.
and for the beautiful words. I really mean
You're
it.
welcome.
Thank you.
Have fun. Have a good
Goodbye.
day. Bye.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Bye.